Hello and welcome to another podcast. Oh, sorry, I'll just start that again. There we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Young Tongues podcast. My name is Barbara Fountain. Oh, sorry, I just got a notification. Quality check video. Oh, yeah, okay, don't tell me that. It's weird. Doesn't usually. Right, I'll do that again. Here we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Young Tongues podcast. My name is Barbara Fountain and I am the founder and CEO of the Young Tongues, a peer-to-peer support group for young tongue cancer patients. Now, I'm delighted to have another community member with us today, Maria Scott. It is a delight to have you today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm glad to be here.
Now, we love to get to know our audiences and our guests beyond the cancer diagnosis. So if I ask you, who's Maria Scott, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. I am a 47-year-old woman. I am a mother. I'm a huge dog lover. In fact, I have 4 dogs. I'm a partner. I love to travel. I'm just enjoying my life.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, talking about tongue cancer and your experience, when did you first realise that something wasn't right?
It was actually in about 2014, I think. My sister is a dental hygienist, and I went to her to get a cleaning, and she noticed a white patch on my mouth. I attributed that to having eaten some pineapple and having maybe a little reaction on my tongue. But she sent me to a specialist, and they got a biopsy, and it was just pre-cancerous cells. I followed those precancerous cells for 4 years until I ended up with cancerous cells.
So it's actually incredible that you have a sister who's a dental hygienist. So to pick that up so early. So what happened once it turned from non-cancerous to cancerous? What were the treatments and the prospects that they communicated with you?
Sure. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma, and it was on my right side. It had gotten very uncomfortable to eat, and things were just basically hurting my mouth. Within probably a week of diagnosis, I had a hemiglossectomy with a neck dissection. They had discovered that cancer was in my lymph nodes, and in fact, on the PET scan, you could see a lymph node that had broken open and the cancer starting to leave the lymph node. So really, we caught it kind of right in time before it spread through my body. Following...
Yeah, I was going to say, so I can imagine, I was going to say, so I imagine you had quite a lot of treatment after your surgery as well.
Yes, I had radiation and chemotherapy, quite a bit of both, and my experience with radiation was really difficult, and chemotherapy sort of felt like I had the flu in comparison to having the radiation.
Did you have them both at the same time, alternating, or did you have radiation and then chemo?
I had chemo and then radiation, yeah.
Okay. So we fast forward and we end here. So one of the main things about having this kind of treatment is the side effects. And we've previously spoken about that you have a big side effects called radiation fibrosis. And I really wanted you to maybe explain to our listeners what radiation fibrosis is and how it affects you.
Sure. Radiation fibrosis can really affect your skin, your muscles, and your tendons in a radiated area. In my case, it has affected the muscles and tendons in my neck. And it has had a big effect on my life. I've quit driving because of it. I have a difficult time moving my head to the left and right, as well as bending over, just because my muscles don't have the stretch that they need to.
Is it the strength and stretch, or is it or is it the bendiness of it?
It's both, really. It's the stretch, so the bendiness isn't really there. And if you could see me in person throughout the normal day, you would see that I turn my body to look at something around me versus turning my neck around.
So how quickly after radiation did you first to notice that something was happening, and how long did it take you or your team to diagnose yourself with radiation fibrosis?
Well, what happened is that about 2 years after treatment, my teeth started to decay, and I ended up with osteoradionecrosis, and I ended up losing all of my teeth. And my local hospital here had basically told me that they wanted me to go to hospice because there was not much more they could do for me because of the amount of decay that I had. So in that moment, instead of going to hospice, I really advocated for myself and sent my medical files to several hospitals, and was eventually accepted at MD Anderson. And there they did a flap of my right jaw, and they used my fibula and titanium and muscle and tissue to rebuild my jaw as well.
Oh my, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
This is...
So
you've already gone through having a tongue cancer diagnosis, a hemiglossectomy, the chemo, the radiation. You have 2 years and everything starts going wrong. And
absolutely.
That is, wow. Maria, how do you even compute this? How do you even deal with that?
With help from my therapist, honestly. My journey has often felt like I get to that piece of light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden the tunnel feels longer. After I had that surgery, I had a really bad case of lymphedema. And once we got the lymphedema sort of taken care of, then that's when I noticed the pain and stiffness in my neck.
Now, I'm just going to pull back a little bit first, just for those that don't know. So I'm just going to rewind a bit to, you called it the necrosis?
Yes, osteoradionecrosis.
And that is, if I remember correctly, when the bones of your jaw start to crumble, basically, and they can't support themselves. And that would also then explain why your teeth were starting to fall out and decay. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. And my local team here had no idea how to treat it, which is why I ended up at MD Anderson.
Yeah. One of the things I was quite struck by is them telling you about hospice. I mean, I don't know if that's a lack of translation in terms of UK and US, but hospice here in the UK, it's not. So they were basically saying end of life care because you can't have enough nutrition. Wow.
Yes,
okay.
And it actually felt like the end of my life. I had prepared to basically not have a life anymore. It was a very tough point in my life. I got down to about 76 pounds, and I was very, very ill.
Yeah. Well, Maria, can I just say, I am so happy that you fought and you went out there and found a second opinion, because you're here with us now and sharing your story. And we have so many patients through the Young Tongues who get bad news. And I think your story is so important in showing what a second opinion can do. So thank you to Anderson for giving you another option. So you had, so now you had the repair. I can see you have beautiful teeth, so they've obviously given you. You do. And so lymphedema, again, for those listening who've not come across that term, it's swelling, I guess, is the best way to describe it, where your lymphatic drainage used to be through your lymph nodes no longer being there, it all fills up with liquids. So a lot of massages, a lot of draining, and again, looking at you got that very well under control now. And then the next thing happens, and you're starting to get the pain. So where do we go from here?
So when I first discovered the pain in my neck, I felt as if I was being treated like, oh, this is a normal thing. Of course, you're going to have pain in your neck after what you went through. But I knew inside myself that this was an extraordinarily different pain. It wasn't just neck pain. It was constant, chronic pain. And I began to notice the, I guess, downward spiral almost of my ability. So it took really advocating for myself once again to get the diagnosis of radiation fibrosis. You know, the precursors to radiation fibrosis are lymphedema and trismus, both of which I had.
And trismus being is it the jaw clenching or not being able to open your jaw?
Right, it is not being able to open your mouth very wide and a clenching of your jaw. And even now, my mouth opening is very small. So, I still go to trismus clinics to this day.
So really, for anyone who's had radiation, those are the main two things to look out for, is lymphedema and trismus.
Yes.
Because it's a precursor. Okay. So I'm just amazed that, you know, your team, and I appreciate you've had different teams now looking of the different specialities, but it sort of seems obvious that radiation fibrosis would have been a diagnosis, not just chronic pain. With regards to treating radiation fibrosis, what are your options?
So initially I was getting Botox. So they would give me Botox injections into my jaw and then into my neck and into my head, because I was also having headaches from the clenching. After a while, the Botox wasn't as effective as it needed to be. And I began to take the pentoxifylline and vitamin E combo. So pentoxifylline is a blood thinner. There are several different blood thinners that doctors will prescribe with vitamin E as a treatment for radiation fibrosis. I also went to PT, and now I get trigger point injections into my head and neck to help me with the pain.
Wow, okay. How, just out of interest, like, how's your everyday life at the moment? Like, are you, what do you do in a day? Because if I'm just imagining shouldn't be, I guess you're not able to do that much, like work and travel and socializing.
Yeah, actually, it's been a really difficult transition. I worked for a T-Mobile, a telecom company, in the corporate office. I had been there 18 years, and I had to leave my job, which was a huge part of my life. As I said, I can't drive anymore, so that's extremely isolating. And my social circle has gotten a lot smaller because I'm not able to go and do the things that my friends maybe are going to do. So not only do you have I don't eat out in public because I have tongue cancer problem, which I think a lot of us go through, but it's the physical limitation that I also am a victim of.
Oh my God, it's so tough. And so, what do you do for joy? How do you keep yourself going?
To be honest, my dogs bring me a lot of joy. They give me a purpose on the day-to-day. I have someone to take care of. I have my partner, who is an amazing person. We had just gotten together, actually, when I got my cancer diagnosis, and he stood by my side through all of this.
Wow.
And then I have great man. And then I have my child. It's not exactly a child. He's 25. But, he brings me a lot of joy in my life, too. So my friends, my family, my dogs, the few hobbies I'm able to do, they really bring me a lot of joy. Oh, and music. I love music.
Oh, excellent. I got you there. I'm with the music as well. So, again, I'm still just struck thinking back that you had a team that told you about going to hospice, but your life, although different, still has so much richness to it. And yes, I totally understand that every day is tough, but also I can see you radiating, like you're smiling and you're radiating hope, and I'm just in awe, to be honest. Going back to radiation fibrosis, what do you feel is next? Do they have any other options? Is there a lot of research into it?
So initially, when I was diagnosed with radiation fibrosis, I was basically not given a lot of hope. I was told there's a medication that we can give you to help maintain it. But I wasn't given really any hope for the long term, other than the fact that the end state of radiation fibrosis is something called dropped head syndrome, where essentially your muscles have given up and you have to wear a brace to support your head. And I was terrified of it. Which in part is why I try to live my life to the fullest that I can at this moment. I recently had a visit at MD Anderson and spoke to a specialist who told me that there had been a few new studies on radiation fibrosis. And in fact, MD Anderson will be doing 2 trials of drugs. One is to prevent radiation fibrosis from happening completely, and one is restoring back people's lives that have radiation fibrosis. So I'm crossing my fingers that I am a part of the trial, and if not a part of the trial, I'm hoping that drug shows promise and I'm able to receive it at some point in time.
Oh, amazing. Well, we're most definitely sending you all our good thoughts and the hope that you can get on the trial. And I think it just goes to show that, with tongue cancer in general, we talk about tongue cancer and the causes of it and how important early diagnosis is, what radiation brings with it whilst going through radiation. But I feel like one of the things we don't really talk enough about is the long-term effects on our health and the different type of conditions that come with it, but also the need for more research and funding to give people like you hope that you can restore some of the damage or prevent more damage from happening. Do you feel that's right?
Absolutely. I feel that's absolutely right. In fact, when I found out that there weren't many studies, I was devastated. And I was initially told that was because not that many patients have radiation fibrosis. And because this was thought to be an old man's disease initially, there wasn't a lot of studies being done on long-term survivors. And that thought process, I've actually seen a huge change in my experience. And even my local hospital has begun to build a long-term survivors care support group. And seeing at MD Anderson, a place that's on the forefront of cancer, doing these studies brings me so much hope. I actually found out that the new percentage of people who have radiation fibrosis is 75% of cancer patients.
Wow.
Now, not everybody may have the same quantity of radiation fibrosis, or severity of radiation fibrosis that I have, but more of us have it than I ever imagined.
And I think that also, it takes you a bit out of that isolation, knowing that there are many other people experiencing what you are. And I also feel, well, I guess that's one of our main missions with the Young Tongues of our existence, is to draw a light on the fact that there are so many more younger patients who are surviving for a lot longer, but have different needs that need to be addressed with research and treatment and support. So
absolutely.
I guess one of my closing questions would be, having gone through this terrible experience from start to finish, from having non-cancerous cells to cancerous cells, hemiglossectomy, getting through the treatment, then having your jaw and teeth replaced, lymphedema, and now radiation fibrosis. By the way, I just hope you notice like what a tough cookie you are, because you've gone through all of that and you'll come out the other side.
Thank you.
How has that shaped your life and your perspective on life, and what hopes do you have for the future?
It's really shifted what my priorities in life were. At the time when I got my cancer diagnosis, I would say that I was a workaholic. And I was very focused on new house, new job, nicer things, more money. And I think that our society really is conditioned that way. However, cancer forced me to take a step back and realign my priorities around friends and family and fun.
I love that.
And so really my priorities have shifted, my focus has shifted. I'm hoping that my story helps others, and that by being maybe a mentor, because I've done a lot of mentorship, by being a mentor to other cancer patients, I can inspire them and give them hope.
Absolutely. I mean, you are without a doubt. And I love concentrating on fun. That is so true, isn't it? It's just...
Yes.
I felt that way when I got diagnosed. I was very much focused on what's next and actually not taking in what I have and being in the moment. And I guess, sorry, I'm just curious. I'm going to add another question.
Go ahead.
Now, taking into consideration how your life has changed, What are the things now, even if they're really small things, that you're really grateful for that you have that you didn't have before?
I'm really grateful for the free time I have because I didn't have much before. I'm just really grateful for my support system. I have always had, my family around me and whatever as a support system, but the way that they have stepped up and embraced me and held me in times when I couldn't stand on my own is just miraculous.
Totally. I'm totally feeling that. Well, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast and for sharing your story. And I think we need to do a lot more work on radiation fibrosis, because I know you're not the only one in our community. We actually have quite a lot of people going through that experience. And I'm so glad that you are, also want to thank you that you are championing that voice and sharing the information on our group. So that's really, really appreciated. So Maria,
thank you for having me.
Oh, always love having you. So thank you so much. And thank you to all our listeners. If you'd like to come onto the podcast and share your story, get in touch. Podcast at youngtonguesglobal.com. Make sure you follow us on social media and stay in touch. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.